The desert sun beat down mercilessly on the armor training ground at Fort Stewart, Georgia, as Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez adjusted her helmet and checked her equipment one final time. The massive M1 Abrams tank loomed before her, like a steel fortress. Its 120mm smoothbore gun pointed skyward, ready for another day of intensive training exercises. At 26 years old, Maria had already proven herself countless times in the field, but today felt different. Today she could feel the weight of skeptical eyes upon her as she prepared to take command of the 68-ton war machine. The crew she had been assigned to work with consisted of 3 seasoned soldiers who had been operating together for over 2 years. Sergeant First Class Jake Morrison, the gunner, had a reputation for precision that bordered on legendary among the battalion. His weathered face and steel-gray eyes spoke of countless hours spent peering through targeting systems, calculating wind speed, distance, and trajectory with mathematical precision. Corporal Danny Chen, the loader, possessed the kind of quick reflexes and physical strength that made him invaluable during high-intensity combat situations. His ability to handle the heavy tank rounds with speed and accuracy had earned him respect throughout the unit. Finally, there was Specialist Tommy Williams, the driver, whose knowledge of the M1 Abrams mechanical systems was encyclopedic. He could navigate the massive tank through terrain that would challenge most experienced operators, reading the landscape like a book written in sand and stone. These 3 men had worked together through multiple deployments, developing the kind of seamless communication and trust that only comes from sharing life-and-death situations. They moved around their tank with practiced efficiency, each knowing exactly where the others would be at any given moment during operations. Their previous tank commander had been transferred to another unit just 2 weeks earlier, leaving them without the 4th crucial member of their team. When Maria was assigned to fill this position, the announcement had been met with polite acknowledgement, but she could sense the underlying tension. The morning briefing had been conducted by Colonel Sarah Henderson, a no-nonsense officer who had earned her position through decades of exemplary service. She outlined the day's training scenario with military precision, explaining that the exercise would test each crew's ability to navigate a complex obstacle course while engaging multiple targets under simulated combat conditions. The course had been designed to push both equipment and personnel to their limits, incorporating everything from steep inclines and narrow passages to rapid target acquisition and engagement sequences. Today's exercise will evaluate crew coordination, tactical decision-making, and equipment handling under pressure, Colonel Henderson announced to the assembled tank crews. Each team will navigate the course individually, with their performance measured against established benchmarks for time, accuracy, and safety protocols. Remember, this isn't just about individual skill levels. Tank warfare requires perfect synchronization between all crew members. As the briefing concluded and crews began their final preparations, Maria noticed the subtle conversations taking place among various groups of soldiers. She caught fragments of discussions about her assignment, hearing whispered comments about whether she had the experience necessary to command in such challenging conditions. Some questioned whether she truly understood the intricacies of coordinating a tank crew during high-stress situations. Others wondered aloud if her previous experience in different military occupational specialties had adequately prepared her for the unique demands of armored vehicle operations. The doubt wasn't entirely without basis. Maria's military career had followed a somewhat unconventional path compared to many of her peers. She had initially enlisted as a military police officer, spending her first enlistment period conducting security operations and convoy escorts in overseas deployments. Her performance in that role had been exemplary, earning her multiple commendations and the respect of her superiors. However, when the opportunity arose to transition into armored operations, she had jumped at the chance to take on new challenges and expand her military expertise. Her training in tank operations had been intensive and comprehensive, covering everything from basic mechanical systems to advanced tactical procedures. She had excelled in every phase of instruction, consistently ranking among the top performers in her class. Her instructors had praised her natural ability to understand complex systems and her talent for making quick decisions under pressure. Despite these achievements, she was still relatively new to the armored community, and some soldiers viewed her with the skepticism often reserved for outsiders trying to prove themselves in established units. Morrison, Chen, and Williams had been polite but reserved during their initial meetings with Maria. They answered her questions professionally and followed her instructions without complaint, but she could sense their reluctance to fully embrace her as their leader. Their previous commander had been someone they trusted implicitly, a soldier who had earned their confidence through shared experiences and demonstrated competence. Maria understood that she would need to prove herself worthy of that same level of trust and respect. The training ground stretched out before them like a miniature battlefield, complete with simulated enemy positions, obstacle courses, and target ranges. The course designers had created a challenging environment that would test every aspect of tank crew performance. Steep hills challenged the vehicle's climbing capabilities, while narrow passages demanded precise navigation skills. Pop-up targets required quick reflexes and accurate gun handling, while communication exercises tested the crew's ability to coordinate effectively under pressure. Other tank crews were already beginning their runs through the course, and Maria watched carefully as each team navigated the various challenges. She observed their communication patterns, noting how experienced commanders coordinated with their crews to achieve optimal performance. Some crews moved with fluid precision, their actions synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. Others struggled with coordination issues, their performance hampered by miscommunication or hesitation at critical moments. As Maria studied the course layout, she began developing her strategy for navigating each section. The opening segment featured a series of rolling hills that would test the tank's mobility and the crew's ability to maintain stability while moving at speed. Following that, a narrow canyon passage would require precise steering and careful communication between commander and driver. The middle section included multiple target engagement zones, where split-second timing would be crucial for achieving high scores. The most challenging portion of the course appeared to be near the end, where tanks would need to navigate a particularly steep incline while simultaneously engaging targets positioned at various elevations. This section had been designed to test the crew's ability to maintain accurate fire control while dealing with the complex physics of shooting from an unstable platform. Success would require perfect coordination between all crew members and absolute trust in each person's abilities. Morrison approached Maria as she studied the course layout, his expression serious but not unfriendly. "Ma'am, I've been thinking about the target sequence in Section 4. He said, pointing to a cluster of pop-up targets positioned around a simulated building complex. "The timing windows are pretty tight, and we'll need to coordinate our movements carefully to engage all targets within the allocated time frame." Maria nodded, appreciating his professional input. "What's your assessment of the optimal approach?" she asked, genuinely interested in his expertise. "Well, if we position ourselves at the northeastern approach angle, I should have clear lines of sight to targets 1 through 4, Morrison explained, tracing imaginary paths across the terrain with his finger. "But targets 5 and 6 will require us to reposition quickly, which means Williams will need to execute a sharp turn while maintaining stability for accurate shooting." Chen joined the conversation, adding his perspective on ammunition handling procedures. "The rapid engagement sequence means I'll need to have the next round ready before you've finished with the current target," he told Morrison. "We'll need clear communication about target priorities so I can anticipate what type of ammunition you'll need next." Williams, who had been checking the tank's mechanical systems, looked up from his inspection. "The terrain in that section is pretty rough," he observed. "I'll need advance warning about when you want to change positions so I can plan the most stable route. Some of those turns will be challenging at the speeds we'll need to maintain." Maria listened carefully to each crew member's concerns, recognizing both their expertise and their gradual willingness to engage with her as their commander. She realized that earning their respect would require more than just following established procedures. She would need to demonstrate her ability to synthesize their individual inputs into effective tactical decisions while maintaining overall situational awareness. The morning sun continued its relentless climb across the clear blue sky, and Maria could feel sweat beginning to form beneath her protective gear. The Georgia heat was notorious among soldiers stationed at Fort Stewart, and operating inside a tank during summer months could be particularly challenging. The M1 Abrams air conditioning system helped, but the combination of hot weather, physical exertion, and stress could still take a toll on crew performance. Colonel Henderson's voice crackled across the radio, announcing that the first crew was completing their run and the next team should prepare for their turn. Maria watched as the tank emerged from the final section of the course. its crew undoubtedly relieved to have completed the challenging exercise. She could see the colonel and other evaluators discussing the performance, making notes on their clipboards and checking times against established benchmarks. "Rodriguez crew, you're up in 15 minutes, came the announcement over the radio. Maria felt a familiar surge of adrenaline as the moment of truth approached. This would be her opportunity to prove that she belonged in this community, that her unconventional background and relative inexperience didn't disqualify her from effective leadership. She gathered her crew for a final coordination meeting, reviewing their planned approach to each section of the course. Morrison confirmed his understanding of the target engagement sequences, while Chen verified ammunition loading procedures for different scenarios. Williams reviewed the route he intended to take through each portion of the course, identifying potential trouble spots where extra caution would be necessary. "Remember," Maria told them, "this exercise is about more than just individual performance. We need to function as a cohesive unit, with each person supporting the others. Communication is crucial, especially when we're dealing with split-second timing requirements. Don't hesitate to speak up if you see something I might have missed." As they climbed into the tank and began their final systems checks, Maria could feel the crew's nervous energy. Despite their professionalism and experience, she knew they were concerned about how their performance would reflect on their unit. A poor showing could impact their standings within the battalion and potentially affect future assignment opportunities. The M1 Abrams came alive around them as Williams initiated the startup sequence. The massive gas turbine engine roared to life, its distinctive whine filling the crew compartment with familiar sounds and vibrations. Morrison began powering up the fire control systems, running through diagnostic checks to ensure all targeting equipment was functioning properly. Chen verified that ammunition storage was properly secured and easily accessible for rapid loading procedures. Maria settled into the commander's position, adjusting her seat and checking her communication systems. From this vantage point, she would need to maintain situational awareness of everything happening around the tank while coordinating her crew's actions and making tactical decisions. The commander's role required a unique combination of technical knowledge, leadership skills, and intuitive understanding of combat dynamics. "All systems green," Williams reported over the intercom. "Engine temperature normal, transmission responding properly, track tension within acceptable parameters. Fire control systems operational," Morrison added. "All targeting computers online, main gun operational, coax machine gun ready. Ammunition secured and ready for rapid loading." Chen confirmed. "All safety protocols verified." Maria took a deep breath, keying her radio to contact the exercise controllers. "Control, this is Rodriguez crew. All systems operational and ready to begin course run. Rodriguez crew, you are cleared to proceed to start line. Good luck out there." As Williams guided the massive tank toward the starting position, Maria reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Her path to tank command had been neither traditional nor easy, but every challenge had taught her valuable lessons about leadership, teamwork, and perseverance. Today would provide her with an opportunity to apply all of those lessons while proving herself to both her crew and her superiors. The doubts of others had always served as motivation rather than discouragement for Maria. Throughout her military career, she had encountered skeptics who questioned whether she had the skills or temperament necessary for various roles and responsibilities. Each time, she had responded by working harder, studying longer, and pushing herself to exceed expectations rather than merely meeting them. As they approached the starting line, Maria could see other tank crews watching from designated observation areas. Some were undoubtedly curious about how the new commander would perform, while others might be hoping to learn something from observing different approaches to the course challenges. She knew that word of her performance would spread quickly throughout the battalion, potentially influencing how other soldiers viewed her capabilities and leadership potential. The starting line consisted of a simple marker positioned at the entrance to the course, but Maria knew that crossing it would begin a carefully timed evaluation that would measure every aspect of their performance. Electronic sensors would track their speed and positioning throughout the course, while human evaluators would assess their target engagement accuracy and crew coordination effectiveness. "Rodriguez crew, you are cleared hot. Begin your run when ready." Maria's heart rate increased as she prepared to give the command that would start their evaluation. Everything they had trained for, all the preparation and coordination, would now be put to the test. She knew that her crew was skilled and experienced, but she also understood that her leadership would be crucial in helping them achieve their maximum potential. "Williams, take us in," she commanded, her voice steady and confident despite the nervous energy coursing through her system. "Remember our plan. Trust your training, and let's show them what we can do." The M1 Abrams lurched forward, its massive tracks gripping the sandy ground as they crossed the starting line and began their journey through the challenging course ahead. The M1 Abrams surged forward across the starting line, its 68 tons of steel and armor cutting through the desert air with surprising grace. Maria felt the familiar sensation of the tank's suspension system absorbing the irregularities of the terrain, as Williams expertly guided them into the first section of the course. The initial segment consisted of a series of rolling hills designed to test both the vehicle's mobility and the crew's ability to maintain formation and communication while navigating challenging topography. The first hill rose before them like a sandy mountain, its slope calculated to challenge the Abrams' climbing capabilities without exceeding safe operational parameters. Williams downshifted smoothly, allowing the gas turbine engine to build torque as they approached the incline. The tank's automatic transmission responded flawlessly, distributing power to the tracks with the precision that had made the M1 Abrams legendary among armored fighting vehicles worldwide. 15-degree slope ahead, Williams reported over the intercom, his voice calm and professional despite the challenging terrain, adjusting approach angle for optimal traction. Maria monitored their progress through her commander's vision blocks, maintaining awareness of their position relative to the course boundaries, while watching for the pop-up targets that could appear at any moment. The first section was designed primarily to test mobility, but exercise designers often included surprise elements to keep crews alert and responsive to changing conditions. As they crested the first hill, the tank's nose pointed skyward for a moment before leveling out as the tracks found purchase on the reverse slope. The sensation was similar to riding a massive steel roller coaster, except that this ride could be interrupted at any second by the need to engage targets or respond to simulated enemy contact. Maria felt her stomach adjust to the changing angles as Williams maintained their forward momentum without sacrificing stability. "Good driving, Williams," she said over the intercom. "Maintain current speed and be ready to adjust if targets appear." Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system as he scanned the horizon through his gunner's sight. "Commander, I'm tracking movement at 2 o'clock, range approximately 800 meters. Could be a target presentation." Maria swiveled her commander's independent thermal viewer in the indicated direction, immediately spotting the telltale signature of a pop-up target beginning to emerge from its concealed position. The target was designed to simulate an enemy armored vehicle, complete with thermal signatures and visual characteristics that would challenge the crew's target identification and engagement procedures. "Target confirmed," Maria announced. "Morrison, engage when ready. Chen, prepare high-explosive anti-tank round." The coordination that followed demonstrated the crew's professional competence despite their limited experience working together. Chen smoothly extracted a training round from the ammunition storage compartment, his movements efficient and practiced as he loaded the simulated projectile into the main gun's breech. Morrison fine-tuned his targeting solution, accounting for range, wind conditions, and the tank's movement across uneven terrain. "Up," Chen called out, indicating that the main gun was loaded and ready to fire. "Identified," Morrison confirmed, his crosshairs centered on the target's critical hit zone. "Fire," Maria commanded. The M1 Abrams shuddered slightly as the main gun discharged its training round, the simulated projectile striking the target with precision that would have been devastating in actual combat. Electronic sensors confirmed the hit, and the pop-up target immediately dropped back into its concealed position to signal a successful engagement. "Target destroyed," Morrison reported with satisfaction evident in his voice. Time from identification to engagement was 4.7 seconds. Maria smiled grimly, knowing that their response time was well within acceptable parameters for this type of engagement. However, she also understood that the real test was just beginning. The course designers had undoubtedly planned increasingly challenging scenarios as they progressed through each section. The second hill presented a different type of challenge, its slope approaching the maximum grade that the M1 Abrams could safely navigate while maintaining operational effectiveness. Williams shifted into a lower gear, allowing the engine to build maximum torque as they approached the steep incline. The tank's advanced suspension system worked overtime to maintain track contact with the ground, adjusting constantly to prevent slippage or loss of traction. "This one's going to be tight," Williams muttered over the intercom. "I'm reading 22 degrees on the slope indicator. We'll need to maintain momentum without overspeeding." Maria monitored their progress carefully, ready to make tactical adjustments if the terrain proved more challenging than anticipated. The M1 Abrams was designed to handle extreme conditions, but every piece of equipment had its limitations. Pushing beyond those limits could result in mechanical failure or worse, loss of crew safety. As they climbed the steep slope, Maria noticed other tank crews watching their progress from designated observation points. She could imagine the conversations taking place among soldiers who were evaluating her leadership and her crew's performance. Some would undoubtedly be impressed by their smooth coordination and efficient target engagement. Others might be waiting for signs of weakness or inexperience that would confirm their initial skepticism. The tank crested the second hill with authority, its tracks maintaining solid contact with the ground as Williams expertly managed the transition from climbing to level movement. The view from the hilltop provided an excellent perspective of the course's remaining sections, allowing Maria to visually confirm the challenges that lay ahead. The narrow canyon passage loomed before them like a mechanical gauntlet designed to test precise navigation skills. The passage was barely wider than the tank itself, requiring Williams to thread the massive vehicle through a space that offered virtually no margin for error. Concrete barriers on either side were positioned to simulate the kind of urban terrain that tank crews might encounter in actual combat operations. "Canyon approach ahead," Maria announced. "Williams, take your time and maintain precise control. Morrison, keep your eyes open for targets within the passage. Chen, be ready for rapid engagement sequences." Williams reduced their speed significantly as they approached the canyon entrance, his hands steady on the controls as he lined up their approach angle. The M1 Abrams responded to his inputs with mechanical precision, its advanced steering system allowing for minute adjustments that would be impossible in older tank designs. The canyon walls rose on either side like concrete cliffs, their surfaces painted to simulate the kind of urban environment where tanks might be forced to operate during combat missions. Hidden speakers produced ambient sounds designed to create psychological pressure, including simulated gunfire and explosions that could distract crews from their primary objectives. "Contact left," Morrison suddenly called out, his voice sharp with professional urgency. A target had appeared in a window opening along the left canyon wall, simulating an enemy anti-tank team preparing to engage their vehicle. This type of threat represented one of the most dangerous challenges that tank crews could face in urban combat, requiring immediate response to prevent catastrophic damage. "Engaging with coaxial machine gun," Morrison announced, switching from the main gun to the tank's secondary weapon system. The target required precision fire that would neutralize the threat without causing excessive collateral damage to surrounding structures. The coaxial machine gun chattered briefly as Morrison delivered a controlled burst into the target area. Electronic sensors confirmed multiple hits, and the simulated enemy position went dark to indicate successful neutralization. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 seconds, demonstrating the crew's ability to identify and respond to threats quickly and effectively. "Good shooting," Maria said approvingly. "Stay alert. There could be more." As they progressed through the canyon, 2 additional targets appeared in rapid succession, testing the crew's ability to engage multiple threats while maintaining forward momentum through the confined space. Morrison's gunnery skills proved exceptional as he successfully neutralized both targets with minimal ammunition expenditure, while Chen's rapid loading procedures kept the weapons system supplied and ready for continuous engagement. Williams navigated the canyon passage with the skill of an experienced driver, maintaining precise control over the massive tank despite the psychological pressure created by the confined space and simulated combat environment. His ability to keep the vehicle centered in the narrow passage while allowing Morrison to maintain stable shooting platforms demonstrated the kind of coordination that separated exceptional crews from merely competent ones. Emerging from the canyon into the open terrain of the course's middle section felt like being released from a mechanical vice. The sudden return to open space was almost disorienting after the claustrophobic confines of the narrow passage, but Maria quickly refocused her attention on the challenges that lay ahead. The middle section featured what course designers called the Target Gallery, a complex arrangement of pop-up targets positioned at various ranges and elevations to test the crew's ability to rapidly acquire and engage multiple threats. Success in this section required not only individual skill, but also seamless coordination between all crew members. "Multiple target indicators ahead," Morrison reported, his voice tense with concentration. "I'm reading at least 6 distinct thermal signatures at ranges from 400 to 1,200 meters." Maria scanned the terrain through her commander's sight, identifying the target positions and quickly calculating an engagement sequence that would maximize their efficiency while minimizing exposure to simulated enemy fire. The targets were positioned to require rapid position changes, testing Williams' driving skills as much as Morrison's gunnery abilities. "Williams, position us at coordinates Alpha 79er," Maria commanded. "Morrison, priority target is the armored vehicle at 10 o'clock, range 800 meters. Chen, load armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot." The tank responded immediately to Williams' control inputs, pivoting smoothly as he positioned them for optimal target engagement. The M1 Abrams advanced fire control system calculated targeting solutions automatically, but Morrison's experience and skill were still crucial for achieving the precision necessary to score direct hits on distant targets. "Up," Chen announced as the main gun loaded. "Identified," Morrison confirmed, his targeting reticle locked onto the priority target. "Fire." The main gun discharged with its characteristic boom, sending a training round downrange toward the target. The simulated armor-piercing projectile struck the target dead center, and electronic sensors immediately confirmed a successful hit. The pop-up target dropped out of sight, simulating the destruction of an enemy armored vehicle. "Target destroyed," Morrison reported. Transitioning to secondary target at 2 o'clock range, 600 meters. Without waiting for commands, Williams was already adjusting their position to provide Morrison with a clear line of sight to the next target. Chen had anticipated the need for another round and was smoothly loading the main gun for the next engagement. The crew's coordination was becoming more fluid with each successful engagement, their individual skills beginning to mesh into the kind of seamless teamwork that characterized elite tank crews. The second target fell just as quickly as the first, followed in rapid succession by the third and fourth targets. Morrison's accuracy was exceptional, with each shot finding its mark despite the challenging conditions and time pressure. Chen's loading procedures were flawless, maintaining a steady supply of ammunition that kept the engagement sequence moving without interruption. As they engaged the fifth target, Maria noticed something unexpected in her peripheral vision. A sixth target had appeared at an elevation and angle that would normally be considered impossible to engage from their current position. The target was positioned on a steep hillside that would require an extreme shooting angle while the tank was positioned on uneven ground. "Morrison, additional target at 11 o'clock, high angle range 500 meters, Maria reported. "This one's going to be challenging." Morrison swiveled his gun sight to acquire the new target, immediately recognizing the difficulty of the shot. "I can see it, but the angle's going to be problematic. We'll need to position the tank to compensate for the elevation difference." Maria quickly calculated their options, realizing that a conventional approach would be unlikely to succeed within the time constraints of the exercise. The target would only remain visible for a limited period, and positioning the tank using standard procedures would take too long. It was at this moment that an unconventional solution occurred to her, inspired by techniques she had learned during her previous military occupational specialty. During her time in military police operations, she had observed wheeled vehicle operators using controlled sliding maneuvers to quickly change direction while maintaining forward momentum. The technique was risky and required precise timing, but it could potentially position them for the difficult shot much faster than conventional maneuvering. "Williams," Maria said, her voice calm despite the audacious nature of what she was about to propose, "I need you to execute a high-speed turn with controlled rear-track lockup. We're going to drift the tank to position for this shot." Williams' voice carried a note of surprise over the intercom. "Ma'am, are you talking about a tank drift? That's not exactly standard operating procedure." Maria understood his hesitation. What she was proposing was indeed unconventional and carried inherent risks. However, Her analysis of the situation suggested that it might be their only option for successfully engaging the challenging target within the available time window. "I know it's unconventional," Maria acknowledged, "but look at our position and the target angle. Standard maneuvering won't get us lined up in time. Can you do it safely?" Williams paused for a moment, considering the request. His extensive knowledge of the M1 Abrams mechanical systems allowed him to quickly evaluate the feasibility and risks of the proposed maneuver. The tank's advanced suspension and track system could theoretically handle the stresses involved, but execution would require precise timing and expert control. "I think so," Williams finally replied. "The ground conditions are suitable, and the tank's weight distribution should allow for controlled sliding if I manage the track engagement properly. But we'll only get one chance at this." Morrison's voice joined the conversation as he continued tracking the elevated target through his gun sight. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Target window is closing rapidly." Maria made her decision with the kind of quick thinking that had served her well throughout her military career. "Execute the maneuver on my mark. Morrison, be ready to engage as soon as we're positioned. Chen, hold on tight." The next few seconds would determine whether her unconventional leadership approach would result in spectacular success or embarrassing failure. Maria keyed her radio to inform the exercise controllers that they were attempting a non-standard maneuver, ensuring that evaluators would understand the intentional nature of their actions. "Control Rodriguez crew is executing tactical positioning maneuver for elevated target engagement. Maintain safety protocols." Maria took a deep breath, knowing that her next command would either vindicate her leadership or confirm the doubts that some soldiers harbored about her capabilities. The elevated target continued to present itself for engagement, but their window of opportunity was rapidly shrinking. "Execute maneuver now." Williams' hands moved across the controls with surgical precision as he executed Maria's audacious command. The M1 Abrams responded to his inputs in a way that seemed to defy the laws of physics governing 68 tons of steel and armor. He applied maximum power to the right track while simultaneously engaging the left track brake, creating the precise differential that would initiate the controlled slide Maria had requested. The massive tank began to pivot around its left track, the rear portion sliding laterally across the sandy ground in a maneuver that few people had ever seen attempted with such a heavy vehicle. The physics involved were complex and dangerous, requiring Williams to maintain just enough forward momentum to prevent the tank from simply spinning in place while avoiding excessive speed that could cause them to lose control entirely. Maria felt the G-forces pressing against her as the tank entered its unconventional turn. Through her commander's vision blocks, she watched the terrain rotating around them with increasing speed, the elevated target sweeping across her field of view as Williams brought them into position for Morrison's shot. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced in conventional tank operations, combining the controlled violence of armored warfare with the precise timing of a choreographed dance. Morrison gripped his gun controls tightly as the tank slid through its arc, fighting to keep his targeting reticle on the elevated target despite the unusual motion affecting his platform stability. His years of experience had taught him to compensate for various types of movement, but tank drifting was definitely not covered in standard gunnery manuals. He relied on instinct and muscle memory, making micro-adjustments to his gun controls to track the target while the tank completed its sliding maneuver. Chen braced himself against the ammunition storage compartments, his experienced hands maintaining secure grips on safety handles, while his body absorbed the lateral forces generated by the tank's unconventional movement. He had loaded thousands of rounds under various conditions throughout his career, but never while his tank was executing what essentially amounted to a controlled crash in slow motion. The sliding maneuver lasted only seconds, but to the crew members inside the tank, it felt like an eternity of controlled chaos. Williams managed the tank's momentum with expert precision, gradually reducing the differential between the tracks as they approached the optimal firing position. The M1 Abrams advanced suspension system absorbed much of the stress, but the crew could still feel every vibration and impact as 68 tons of steel fought against momentum and friction. Outside observers watched in stunned silence as the massive tank executed its unprecedented maneuver. Other crews had gathered at observation points to watch Rodriguez's team navigate the course, but none of them had expected to witness anything like the controlled drift currently unfolding before their eyes. Some soldiers pulled out their phones to record the unusual spectacle, recognizing that they were witnessing something that might never be attempted again. Colonel Henderson observed the maneuver through her binoculars, her expression shifting from surprise to professional interest as she evaluated the tactical implications of what she was seeing. Her years of experience had taught her to appreciate innovation when it was executed skillfully, even when that innovation departed from established doctrine. She made mental notes about the crew's performance while maintaining her official evaluator's objectivity. The tank completed its drift with Williams expertly bleeding off their remaining momentum, bringing the massive vehicle to a complete stop in perfect position for Morrison to engage the elevated target. The gun tube now pointed directly at the challenging target that had seemed impossible to engage using conventional positioning tactics. The entire maneuver had taken less than 10 seconds, but it had positioned them for a shot that would have required several minutes using standard procedures. "Target acquired," Morrison announced, his voice tight with concentration, as he fine-tuned his aim on the elevated position. "Range 500 meters, elevation angle 37 degrees. Requesting permission to engage." Maria quickly verified their position and confirmed that the gun was indeed aimed at the correct target. The drift maneuver had worked exactly as she had hoped, providing Morrison with a clear shot at the previously impossible target. However, she also recognized that the success of the maneuver would be meaningless unless Morrison could actually hit the target under these challenging conditions. "Engage when ready," Maria commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Morrison's finger found the trigger as his crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. The main gun discharged with its familiar boom, sending a training round arcing upward toward the elevated position. The ballistic trajectory was complex, requiring the fire control computer to calculate for both the extreme angle and the unusual firing position resulting from their drift maneuver. Time seemed suspended as the round flew toward its target, everyone holding their breath while waiting to see if Maria's unconventional tactics would result in success or failure. The electronic sensors that would confirm hit or miss seemed to take forever to register the round's impact, though in reality only a few seconds passed between firing and target contact. "Direct hit!" Morrison shouted with undisguised enthusiasm. "Target destroyed!" The pop-up target immediately dropped out of sight, confirming that their unorthodox approach had succeeded in neutralizing what should have been an impossible engagement. Electronic scoreboards updated to reflect their successful hit, adding points to their overall exercise score while also recording the unusual nature of their tactical approach. The crew erupted in spontaneous celebration, their professional restraint momentarily overwhelmed by the excitement of having successfully executed such an audacious maneuver. Williams whooped with joy over the intercom, while Chen pumped his fist in triumph. Morrison's usual stoic demeanor cracked as he grinned widely at his successful shot. "Outstanding work, all of you," Maria said, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on the remaining portions of the course. "But we're not finished yet. Stay focused and let's complete this run with the same level of excellence." Her reminder brought the crew back to their professional mindset. Though the successful drift maneuver had fundamentally changed the dynamic within the tank, the three experienced soldiers now looked at their new commander with obvious respect and admiration, recognizing that her unconventional background had provided her with insights that traditional tank training might not have offered. Williams guided them out of the target gallery section toward the final portion of the course, his driving noticeably more confident, now that he had proven his ability to execute even the most challenging maneuvers. The successful drift had demonstrated not only his skill as a driver, but also his willingness to trust Maria's tactical judgment, even when her commands departed from standard operating procedures. The final section of the course loomed ahead like a mechanical mountain, featuring the steep incline that had been designed to test crew coordination under the most challenging conditions possible. This section combined maximum terrain difficulty with simultaneous target engagement requirements, creating a scenario that would push both equipment and personnel to their absolute limits. The incline rose before them at an angle that approached the maximum climbing capability of the M1 Abrams. Course designers had positioned multiple targets along the slope at various elevations, requiring crews to maintain accurate fire while dealing with the complex physics of shooting from a steeply angled platform. Success would require perfect coordination between all crew members and absolute trust in their collective abilities. "Final section ahead," Maria announced over the intercom. "This is where everything we've practiced comes together. Williams, maintain steady climbing speed but be ready to adjust for target engagement. Morrison, prepare for multiple elevated targets with challenging angles. Chen, rapid loading sequence will be critical." As they approached the base of the incline, Maria could see other tank crews positioned at observation points along the slope, watching to see how Rodriguez's team would handle the most difficult portion of the exercise. Word of their successful drift maneuver had spread quickly among the assembled soldiers, creating additional interest in their performance during the final challenge. The M1 Abrams began its climb up the steep slope, its gas turbine engine roaring as Williams managed power distribution between the tracks. The tank's advanced suspension system worked continuously to maintain track contact with the uneven surface, adjusting to prevent slippage or loss of traction that could result in dangerous backward sliding. First target, 11 o'clock. Range 300 meters. Morrison reported as a pop-up target appeared partway up the slope. Angle compensation required for upward shot. The challenge of engaging targets while climbing a steep incline was significantly more complex than shooting from level ground. The tank's angled position affected both the ballistic trajectory of outgoing rounds and the stability of the gun platform. Morrison would need to compensate for these factors, while also dealing with the vibrations and movement created by climbing over rough terrain. "Target acquired," Morrison announced, compensating for platform angle and target elevation. "Up," Chen called out, having smoothly loaded a training round despite the challenging conditions inside the tank. "Fire when ready," Maria commanded. The main gun discharged while the tank continued climbing, the recoil adding to the complex forces already affecting the vehicle's stability. Morrison's shot was true, striking the target with accuracy that impressed even experienced observers. The electronic sensors confirmed another direct hit, adding to their already impressive score for the exercise. "Excellent shooting," Maria said approvingly. "Stay alert for additional targets." The second target appeared higher up the slope, requiring an even more extreme upward angle for successful engagement. This target had been positioned to test the absolute limits of the tank's gun elevation capabilities, while simultaneously challenging the crew's ability to maintain accuracy under adverse conditions. Williams continued climbing steadily, his expert handling of the controls keeping the tank stable despite the increasingly challenging terrain. The slope was now approaching the steepest section, where even minor mistakes in throttle control or steering could result in dangerous situations for both crew and equipment. "Contact, 12 o'clock high," Morrison called out. "Range 200 meters. Elevation angle approaching maximum gun capability." Maria evaluated the target position through her commander's sight, recognizing immediately that this engagement would test the very limits of their equipment's capabilities. The target was positioned at such an extreme angle that engaging it would require precise coordination between Williams' driving and Morrison's gunnery, with any deviation from perfect timing likely resulting in a missed shot. "This one's going to be tight," Morrison said, his voice tense with concentration. "I'm at maximum elevation and the platform movement is making it difficult to maintain a stable sight picture." Maria considered their options quickly, recognizing that conventional engagement tactics might not be sufficient for this particular target. However, the success of their earlier drift maneuver had given her confidence in her crew's ability to execute unconventional solutions when standard procedures proved inadequate. "Williams, can you level the tank momentarily without losing forward momentum?" Maria asked. "If we can create a brief stability window, Morrison might be able to get the shot." Williams considered the request, his extensive knowledge of the M1 Abrams capabilities allowing him to quickly evaluate the feasibility of such a maneuver. The technique Maria was describing would require precise timing and expert control, but it was theoretically possible if executed properly. "I can try," Williams replied. "If I adjust the track speeds differentially while maintaining climbing power, I might be able to create a temporary level platform, but the window will be very brief." Morrison nodded, understanding over the intercom. "Just give me 2 seconds of stable platform, and I can make the shot." Chen prepared for rapid loading procedures, recognizing that the success of their unconventional approach would require him to have ammunition ready instantly when needed. His experience had taught him to anticipate the needs of his gun crew, staying one step ahead of the engagement sequence to maintain continuous fire capability. "Execute on my mark," Maria commanded. Williams, "Level the platform." Morrison, "Engage when stable." Chen, "Stand by for immediate reload if necessary." The coordination that followed demonstrated the transformation that had occurred within the crew during their course run. What had begun as a group of skilled but uncertain individuals had evolved into a cohesive team, capable of executing complex maneuvers under extreme pressure. The successful drift had broken down the barriers of doubt and skepticism, replacing them with mutual trust and professional respect. Williams executed his platform-leveling maneuver with precision that bordered on artistry, using differential track power to temporarily counteract the effects of the steep slope. For approximately 2 seconds, the massive tank maintained a relatively level attitude despite continuing to climb the incline, creating the stable shooting platform that Morrison needed for his challenging shot. Morrison took full advantage of the stability window, his crosshairs finding the target and holding steady as he squeezed the trigger. The main gun discharged at the optimal moment, sending another training round toward the high-angle target with accuracy that defied the challenging conditions under which the shot was taken. "Hit," Morrison announced triumphantly, as the electronic sensors confirmed another successful engagement. "Target destroyed!" The crew's celebration was more subdued this time, their professional confidence now established through proven performance rather than hopeful anticipation. They had successfully demonstrated their ability to work together as an effective team, overcoming both conventional challenges and situations that required innovative solutions. As they approached the crest of the incline, Maria realized that they had accomplished something more significant than simply completing a training exercise. Her unconventional leadership approach, combined with her crew's willingness to trust her judgment and execute challenging maneuvers, had created a team dynamic that exceeded the sum of its individual parts. The final portion of the course lay just ahead, featuring a rapid descent that would test Williams' driving skills one last time before they crossed the finish line. This section was designed to ensure that crews maintained control and discipline even when the end of the exercise was within sight, preventing the kind of complacency that could lead to accidents or equipment damage. Colonel Henderson's voice crackled over the radio as they prepared for the final descent. "Rodriguez crew, outstanding performance so far. Maintain focus and complete your runs safely." Maria acknowledged the transmission while privately savoring the recognition from her superior officer. The doubt and skepticism that had surrounded her assignment to this crew seemed like distant memories now, replaced by the satisfaction of proven competence and effective leadership. The descent began with Williams expertly controlling their speed down the steep reverse slope, his hands steady on the controls as he managed the complex physics of guiding 68 tons of steel down a challenging gradient. The M1 Abrams' advanced braking systems engaged automatically to prevent dangerous acceleration, but Williams' skill and experience were still crucial for maintaining control during the descent. Maria monitored their progress through her commander's vision blocks, while simultaneously keeping watch for any additional targets that might appear during this final phase of the exercise. Course designers were notorious for including surprise elements right up until crews crossed the finish line, testing their ability to remain alert and responsive even when success seemed assured. The tank's suspension system absorbed the impacts and vibrations of the descent, but the crew could still feel every bump and irregularity in the terrain. Morrison kept his gun systems active and ready for engagement, while Chen maintained his position near the ammunition storage, prepared for any last-minute firing requirements that might arise. "Descent angle within acceptable parameters," Williams reported over the intercom. Braking systems responding normally, no indications of overheating or mechanical stress. As they navigated the descent, Maria reflected on the dramatic transformation that had occurred within her crew during the course run. The 3 experienced soldiers who had initially viewed her with polite skepticism had evolved into trusted teammates who were willing to execute unconventional maneuvers based solely on her tactical judgment. The successful tank drift had served as a catalyst for this change, demonstrating that her unorthodox background could provide valuable insights rather than representing a liability. The doubt that had surrounded her assignment to this crew now seemed almost laughable in retrospect. Morrison, Chen, and Williams had proven themselves not only capable of exceptional individual performance, but also willing to adapt and innovate when circumstances required creative solutions. Their willingness to attempt the drift maneuver had required considerable trust in both her leadership and Williams' driving abilities. Multiple observers at 10 o'clock, Morrison noted as they continued their descent. Looks like word of our performance has attracted some attention. Maria could see groups of soldiers positioned at various observation points along the final section of the course, many of them holding binoculars or other optical equipment to get better views of passing tank crews. She noticed that their observer contingent seemed larger than those watching other crews, suggesting that news of their unconventional tactics had spread throughout the training area. Among the observers, she could see other tank commanders and crew members who had already completed their runs, along with instructors and evaluators who were responsible for assessing crew performance. Some were undoubtedly curious about the techniques that had allowed Rodriguez's crew to achieve their impressive target engagement scores, while others might be skeptical about the wisdom of attempting non-standard maneuvers during formal evaluations. Colonel Henderson was visible among the observers, her presence adding weight to the significance of this final phase of their exercise. Maria knew that her superior officer's assessment would carry considerable influence over future assignment opportunities and career advancement prospects. The successful completion of this exercise could open doors to advanced training programs or specialized unit assignments. As they reached the midpoint of the descent, a final surprise target appeared at close range, designed to test crew reflexes and coordination when engagement windows were extremely brief. The target was positioned to simulate an enemy anti-tank team attempting to engage their vehicle during a vulnerable phase of movement, requiring immediate response to prevent simulated destruction. "Contact front," Morrison called out sharply. "Close range bearing 090, approximately 100 meters. The proximity of the target meant that engagement procedures would need to be executed with lightning speed. At such close range, even a brief delay in response could result in simulated enemy success, potentially affecting their overall exercise score and professional standing. Engaging with coaxial machine gun, Morrison announced, recognizing that the close range and rapid engagement requirements made the secondary weapon system more appropriate than the main gun for this particular threat. Chen maintained his ready position near the main gun ammunition, prepared to load another round if the situation required escalation to the primary weapon system. His experience had taught him to anticipate crew needs and stay prepared for rapid transitions between different engagement scenarios. The coaxial machine gun chattered briefly as Morrison delivered precise fire into the target area. Electronic sensors immediately confirmed multiple hits, and the pop-up target dropped out of sight to indicate successful neutralization. The entire engagement sequence had lasted less than 2 seconds, demonstrating the crew's ability to respond effectively to surprise threats even during complex maneuvering operations. "Target neutralized," Morrison reported with satisfaction. "Clean engagement, minimal ammunition expenditure." Williams continued managing their descent without any interruption from the brief combat engagement. His concentration focused on maintaining optimal speed and control as they approached the final straightaway leading to the finish line. The ability to maintain vehicle control while his crew engaged targets represented the kind of multitasking skill that separated exceptional drivers from merely competent ones. The final straightaway stretched out before them like a sandy highway leading to vindication and professional recognition. This section was designed to allow crews to demonstrate sustained speed and control over level terrain, providing a dramatic conclusion to what had been a challenging and technically demanding exercise. "Final section ahead," Maria announced over the intercom. "Maintain current speed and stay alert for any additional surprises. We're almost home, but the exercise isn't over until we cross the finish line." Williams accelerated smoothly as they entered the straightaway, the M1 Abrams responding with the kind of power and grace that had made it legendary among armored fighting vehicles. The gas turbine engine roared with controlled fury as they built speed toward the finish line, their tracks throwing up clouds of sand that marked their passage across the desert training ground. Maria could see the finish line markers ahead, along with groups of observers and evaluators who had gathered to watch crews complete their runs. Electronic timing systems would measure their total course time to the 100th of a second, while human evaluators would assess their overall performance based on target engagement accuracy, safety compliance, and crew coordination effectiveness. The 3 soldiers who comprised her crew had exceeded every expectation she might have held when they were first assigned to work together. Morrison's gunnery skills had proven exceptional under even the most challenging conditions, while Chen's ammunition handling procedures had been flawless throughout the exercise. Williams had demonstrated driving abilities that bordered on artistry, culminating in his successful execution of the tank drift that had become the highlight of their performance. More importantly, all 3 had shown the kind of adaptability and trust that characterized elite military units. Their willingness to attempt unconventional maneuvers based on her tactical judgment had transformed a group of skeptical individuals into a cohesive team capable of achieving results that exceeded standard performance expectations. As they approached the finish line, Maria reflected on the broader implications of what they had accomplished. Her success in this exercise would not only validate her individual capabilities as a tank commander, but also demonstrate the value of diverse backgrounds and unconventional thinking in military operations. The techniques she had learned during her previous military occupational specialty had provided crucial insights that traditional armored training might not have offered. The finish line grew larger in their field of view, and Maria could see Colonel Henderson positioning herself to observe their completion of the exercise. Other tank crews who had already finished their runs were gathered nearby, undoubtedly curious about the final performance statistics for the crew that had attempted the unprecedented tank drift maneuver. "Finish line in sight," Williams reported over the intercom. "Maintaining speed for strong finish." Maria keyed her radio to contact the exercise controllers one final time. "Control, Rodriguez crew approaching finish line, all systems operational. No safety issues to report. Copy, Rodriguez crew. Outstanding performance observed throughout your run. Stand by for final timing." The M1 Abrams crossed the finish line with authority, its massive tracks marking the completion of what had been an exceptional demonstration of crew coordination and tactical innovation. Electronic timing systems immediately calculated their total course time, while evaluators began compiling their comprehensive performance assessment. Williams brought the tank to a controlled stop in the designated completion area, the engine's roar gradually subsiding as he reduced power to idle. The sudden, relative quiet inside the crew compartment felt almost strange after the intense noise and vibration of high-speed operations, but it also provided a moment for reflection on what they had accomplished. "Outstanding work, everyone," Maria said over the intercom, her voice carrying genuine pride and appreciation for her crew's performance. "That was textbook execution under challenging conditions, plus some innovation that I think surprised everyone watching." Morrison, Chen, and Williams responded with the kind of satisfied acknowledgement that comes from knowing they had performed at their absolute best when it mattered most. The skepticism and uncertainty that had characterized their initial interactions had been completely replaced by mutual respect and professional confidence. Colonel Henderson approached the tank as the crew began their post-exercise procedures, her expression indicating that she was pleased with what she had observed. Other officers and senior non-commissioned officers gathered nearby, their presence suggesting that the exercise performance had attracted significant attention from the battalion leadership. "Rodriguez," Colonel Henderson called out as Maria emerged from the commander's hatch. "Report to the evaluation tent in 10 minutes for your debrief. Bring your crew." The formal tone of the colonel's voice provided no indication of her assessment, but Maria detected what might have been approval in her superior officer's demeanor. The request for an immediate debrief was standard procedure, but the instruction to bring the entire crew suggested that their performance had generated discussion among the evaluating officers. As the crew completed their post-exercise equipment checks and secured their tank for evaluation, word of their performance continued spreading throughout the training area. Other soldiers approached their vehicle to ask questions about the drift maneuver, while some requested demonstrations or explanations of the techniques they had employed. Morrison fielded most of the questions about target engagement procedures, his natural teaching ability making him an effective spokesman for their gunnery techniques. Chen discussed ammunition handling procedures with other loaders, sharing insights about maintaining rapid loading capabilities under challenging conditions. Williams found himself surrounded by drivers eager to learn about the tank drift, though he was careful to emphasize the risks and skill requirements involved in such maneuvers. Maria observed these interactions with satisfaction, recognizing that her crew's willingness to share their knowledge with other soldiers demonstrated the kind of professional generosity that characterized the best military units. Their success had not made them arrogant or secretive, but rather more willing to contribute to the overall improvement of their entire battalion. The walk to the evaluation tent provided an opportunity for Maria to process the significance of what they had accomplished. In the space of a single training exercise, they had transformed from a group of strangers into an effective team, while simultaneously demonstrating tactical innovations that could potentially influence future training programs and operational procedures. The evaluation tent bustled with activity, as officers and senior non-commissioned officers reviewed performance data and compiled their assessments of each crew's exercise results. Computer terminals displayed detailed statistics about timing, accuracy, and safety compliance, while human evaluators added their observations about leadership, coordination, and adaptability. Colonel Henderson gestured for Maria and her crew to approach a designated briefing area where their specific performance would be discussed. Other crews who had completed their runs were scattered throughout the tent, receiving their own individual assessments and feedback from the evaluating officers. Rodriguez's crew, Colonel Henderson began, consulting her notes and computer displays. Your performance today was exceptional. Target engagement accuracy, 97%. Course completion time, well under established benchmarks. No safety violations observed. She paused, looking directly at Maria. However, your decision to attempt an unauthorized maneuver requires discussion. The tank drift you executed was undoubtedly effective, but it also represented a significant departure from established procedures. Can you explain your tactical reasoning for that decision? Maria stood at attention before Colonel Henderson, her crew flanking her as the evaluation tent buzzed with quiet conversations about their unprecedented performance. She had anticipated this question about the tank drift maneuver and had prepared her response carefully, knowing that her explanation could influence how such innovative tactics might be viewed in future training scenarios. Ma'am, the elevated target presented a tactical challenge that could not be effectively addressed using standard positioning procedures within the available time window. Maria began, her voice clear and confident. My analysis indicated that conventional maneuvering would require approximately 45 seconds to achieve proper firing position, while the target would only remain visible for approximately 15 seconds. Colonel Henderson nodded, encouraging her to continue with her tactical reasoning. During my previous assignment in military police operations, I observed wheeled vehicle operators using controlled sliding techniques to rapidly change direction while maintaining forward momentum. Maria continued. I adapted those principles to our current situation, calculating that a controlled drift maneuver could position us for target engagement in approximately 8 seconds while remaining within the M1 Abrams operational safety parameters. The colonel's expression remained professionally neutral, but Maria detected signs of interest as she explained her decision-making process. Other officers had gathered nearby to listen to the discussion, recognizing that they were hearing about tactical innovation that could potentially influence future doctrine development. The maneuver was executed only after confirming that Specialist Williams possessed the technical expertise necessary for safe execution, Maria added. I would not have attempted such a technique without complete confidence in my crew's abilities and the mechanical capabilities of our equipment. Williams stepped forward slightly, his respect for Maria evident in his demeanor. Ma'am, if I may add something, he said, addressing Colonel Henderson directly. The commander's tactical analysis was correct, and her understanding of the tank's capabilities was accurate. The maneuver was challenging but well within safe operational limits. Morrison and Chen nodded their agreement, their body language communicating support for both Maria's leadership and the decisions she had made during the exercise. The transformation in their attitudes was obvious to anyone observing the crew dynamics, representing a complete reversal from the polite skepticism they had displayed before the exercise began. Colonel Henderson consulted her notes and computer displays, reviewing the detailed performance data that had been collected during their course run. Electronic sensors had recorded every aspect of their tank's movement and weapon system employment, providing objective measurements that supplemented the subjective observations of human evaluators. According to our data, your tank drift maneuver was executed with precision that suggests considerable skill and preparation, the colonel said. her tone becoming more positive. Platform stability was maintained throughout the maneuver. No mechanical stress indicators were triggered, and target engagement was accomplished successfully within optimal timing parameters. She paused, looking at each crew member individually before continuing. What impressed our evaluation team most was not necessarily the unconventional nature of your tactics, but rather the crew coordination that made such a maneuver possible. Your communication was clear, your individual roles were executed flawlessly, and your collective performance exceeded established benchmarks. Maria felt a surge of pride, not just for her own tactical decisions, but for the exceptional performance of Morrison, Chen, and Williams. Their willingness to trust her leadership and execute challenging maneuvers had been crucial to their success, demonstrating the kind of teamwork that characterized elite military units. However, Colonel Henderson continued, her expression becoming more serious, innovation in military operations must be balanced against established safety protocols and chain of command procedures. While your tactical creativity was effective in this controlled training environment, similar decisions in actual combat operations would require different considerations. Maria understood the colonel's point and appreciated the constructive nature of her feedback. Military innovation required careful balance between creative problem-solving and adherence to proven procedures that had been developed through decades of experience and analysis. "Yes, ma'am," Maria replied. "I understand that training exercises provide opportunities to test innovative approaches under controlled conditions, while actual combat operations require strict adherence to established doctrine unless exceptional circumstances justify deviation from standard procedures." The colonel nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Your performance today demonstrates the kind of tactical thinking and leadership skills that we value in our officer development programs. However, it also highlights the importance of understanding when innovation is appropriate and when established procedures must take precedence." Other crews in the evaluation tent had begun gathering closer to listen to the discussion, recognizing that they were witnessing a significant moment in their unit's training history. The tank drift that Rodriguez's crew had executed was already becoming legendary among the assembled soldiers, representing a perfect fusion of individual skill, crew coordination, and tactical innovation. Major Robert Chen, the battalion operations officer, approached the group with obvious interest in the ongoing discussion. His presence added additional weight to the significance of the evaluation, suggesting that Rodriguez's performance had attracted attention from higher levels of command. "Colonel Henderson," Major Chen said, "I've been reviewing the performance data from today's exercise, and I'm particularly interested in discussing the tactical implications of what we observed here." He turned to address Maria directly. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your crew's performance raises some interesting questions about the potential applications of unconventional maneuvering techniques in actual combat scenarios. Have you given any thought to how such tactics might be integrated into existing doctrine?" Maria recognized that this question represented an opportunity to influence future training programs and tactical development within their unit. Her response could potentially affect how innovative techniques were viewed and implemented by the battalion leadership. "Sir, I believe that unconventional maneuvers, like the tank drift, should be evaluated as specialized techniques that might prove valuable under specific circumstances," Maria replied thoughtfully. "They require exceptional crew coordination and mechanical expertise, which suggests they should be taught only to crews that have demonstrated mastery of standard procedures." Major Chen nodded, clearly impressed by her analytical approach to tactical innovation. "What would you consider the primary requirements for safe execution of such maneuvers?" Williams stepped forward again, his technical expertise making him the natural spokesman for the mechanical aspects of the technique. "Sir, successful execution requires detailed understanding of the tank's weight distribution, track engagement systems, and suspension capabilities. The maneuver also depends on suitable ground conditions and adequate space for safe completion." Morrison added his perspective from the gunnery standpoint. "The biggest challenge is maintaining target acquisition and engagement capability while the platform is in motion. It requires anticipation and compensation for the unusual movement patterns affecting the gun systems." Chen contributed his insights about ammunition handling during unconventional maneuvers. Loading procedures become more complex when the tank is executing rapid direction changes. Safety protocols are crucial for preventing ammunition handling accidents under such conditions. Major Chen listened carefully to each crew member's input, recognizing that their collective insights could provide valuable guidance for evaluating the broader applications of such techniques. Their ability to articulate both the advantages and limitations of unconventional maneuvers demonstrated a level of professional maturity that exceeded their rank and experience levels. "Colonel Henderson," Major Chen said, "I recommend that we document these techniques and consider incorporating them into our advanced training curriculum. However, as Staff Sergeant Rodriguez suggested, such instruction should be limited to crews that have demonstrated exceptional proficiency in standard procedures." The discussion continued for several more minutes as other officers joined the conversation, recognizing that they were witnessing the potential development of new tactical doctrine. Rodriguez's crew found themselves at the center of a professional discussion that could influence armored training programs throughout their division and possibly beyond. As the formal evaluation concluded, Maria reflected on the dramatic transformation that had occurred during the course of a single training exercise. She had begun the day as a new tank commander, working with a skeptical crew, facing doubt about her capabilities and leadership potential. She was ending it as the leader of a cohesive team that had demonstrated exceptional performance while pioneering innovative tactical techniques. The three soldiers who had initially questioned her assignment to their crew now stood beside her as trusted teammates, their confidence in her leadership evident to anyone observing their interactions. Morrison, Chen, and Williams had proven themselves not only individually skilled, but also capable of the kind of adaptability and trust that characterized elite military units. Colonel Henderson dismissed the crew with instructions to report for additional debriefing sessions the following morning, where their techniques would be analyzed in greater detail for potential inclusion in future training programs. The recognition that their innovation could influence broader tactical development represented a significant professional achievement for all four crew members. As they walked back toward their tank for final equipment checks and maintenance procedures, Maria noticed other soldiers approaching with questions about their performance and requests for informal instruction in the techniques they had employed. The attention was flattering, but she was careful to emphasize the skill requirements and safety considerations involved in attempting such maneuvers. Morrison found himself surrounded by other gunners, eager to learn about target engagement techniques under challenging conditions. His natural teaching ability made him an effective instructor, and he enjoyed sharing insights about maintaining accuracy while compensating for unusual platform movement. Chen discussed ammunition handling procedures with other loaders, emphasizing the importance of safety protocols when executing rapid loading sequences under challenging conditions. His experience had taught him that even minor deviations from proper procedures could result in serious accidents when dealing with tank ammunition. Williams attracted the most attention from other drivers, all of whom were curious about the mechanics of executing a controlled tank drift. However, he was careful to stress the risks involved and the extensive knowledge of tank systems required for safe execution. The afternoon sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon, as Maria supervised her crew's completion of post-exercise maintenance procedures. The M1 Abrams required careful inspection after intensive operations, and she wanted to ensure that their innovative maneuvers had not caused any mechanical stress or component damage. Their maintenance inspection revealed that the tank had handled the unconventional maneuvers without any adverse effects on its mechanical systems. The advanced suspension and drivetrain had absorbed the stresses of the drift maneuver without exceeding design parameters, confirming Williams' assessment that the technique was within safe operational limits. As evening approached and the training area began to quiet down, Maria found herself alone with her thoughts for the first time since the morning briefing. The events of the day had exceeded her most optimistic expectations, transforming what could have been a routine training exercise into a career-defining moment that might influence her future assignments and advancement opportunities. More importantly, she had proven to herself and others that unconventional backgrounds could provide valuable insights in military operations. Her experience in military police operations had taught her to think creatively about vehicle employment, leading to tactical innovations that might never have been developed by soldiers following traditional career paths. The doubt and skepticism that had surrounded her assignment to this crew seemed like distant memories now, replaced by the satisfaction of proven competence and effective leadership. Morrison, Chen, and Williams had evolved from reluctant teammates into trusted partners who were willing to execute challenging maneuvers based solely on their confidence in her tactical judgment. As the crew completed their final equipment checks and prepared to return their tank to the motor pool, Maria realized that today's success represented more than just exceptional performance during a training exercise. It had demonstrated the value of diversity, innovation, and trust in military operations, principles that would serve her well throughout the remainder of her career. The tank drift that had surprised and impressed observers would be remembered as a perfect fusion of individual skill, crew coordination, and tactical innovation. More importantly, it had proven that exceptional results could be achieved when leaders were willing to think creatively and crews were prepared to trust each other completely. Colonel Henderson's final words echoed in Maria's mind as they secured their equipment and prepared to depart the training area. Outstanding leadership, exceptional innovation, and perfect crew coordination. This is the kind of performance that sets new standards for our entire battalion. The sun set over Fort Stewart as Rodriguez's crew completed their historic day of training, their tank drift destined to become legendary among armored units throughout the Army. They had proven that doubt could be overcome through competence, skepticism could be answered through performance, and innovation could emerge from the most unexpected sources when talented individuals were willing to trust each other and push beyond conventional limitations.